You're all wondering, who could it be that is going to be the intro video that will make you vomit in your mouths if it's not Trudeau, not Freeland, not gruesome Newsom, and not Kamala Harris?
Bien joué. J'ai besoin de... Lundi, c'est jour de vote partout au Québec. Il n'y a rien de joué. J'ai besoin de votre vote. Chaque vote va compter. J'ai une équipe qui est prête à vous servir. J'ai envie de vous servir. Si on est réélu, on va, dès le mois de décembre, vous envoyer un chèque de 400 à 600 $. Les personnes âgées vont recevoir un 2000 de plus. On va aussi baisser les impôts. Donc, vous pouvez compter sur moi, mais je compte sur vous lundi.
And everyone gets a free puppy. Everyone gets a free puppy. You get 800. How do I get this?
Jour de vote partout au Québec. Il n'y a rien de joué. J'ai besoin de...
Il n'y a rien de jouer. Everyone is going to get $400 to $600 back after I get elected. If I get elected, old people, you're going to get $2,000. Everyone gets a puppy and a unicorn after I get elected, not before. That's François Legault, Supreme Leader, Sunset Thief. François Legault, a man who I have an immeasurable amount of political disdain for. You all know I have some bizarre thing where, like, the olfactory sense is the most important sense to me. When I politically detest someone, I feel that they would smell bad if I ever saw them in person. Don't care what he could wear Fahrenheit. I feel that the way the Fahrenheit would interact with his skin would make me hate Fahrenheit cologne. But by the way, sorry, spoiler alert, that was a double fakie. That's not the intro that was going to make you barf in your mouths. That's just the intro to remind everybody it's tomorrow. Oh geez, I don't want to get the date wrong. The elections, I think it's tomorrow in Quebec. Let me double check. I don't want to get I don't want to be accused of Quebec election 2022. I do not want to be accused. Not sure who to vote for. 43, October 3rd. It's tomorrow. Okay, good. Tomorrow is Quebec's 43rd general election in Quebec. Good old Frank, the Sunset Thief, Supreme Leader, the man who locked us in our homes for 5.5 months, shut down non-essential businesses, compelled the essential businesses that remained open during COVID to section off with saran wrap non-essential items, promising free money, that's your money that he took from you that he's going to give back to you if you vote for him. $2,000 for you old folks who vote in large numbers. He wants to serve you. He'll lower your taxes after he gets elected. He's had however many years to do this. No. If he gets elected, you're going to get money back, your own money. And you old people, you might get someone else's money. And he's going to lower your taxes after he gets elected. The election is tomorrow. I never tell anybody who to vote for. I would just say what you're going to get if you vote. For Frankie Legault, you're going to get supreme dictator who thinks he can tell you where to go, who to see, when you can operate your business, what you have to put in your body, what you have to put over your face. Totally unscientific rubbish, unconstitutional rubbish. He's running for re-election. It's election day tomorrow. You vote for more of the same. You ratify all of that man's unconstitutional, unscientific, abusive conduct, or you vote for something different. Okay, that was not the intro that's going to make you puke. It's coming now. And by the way, yes, we are going to rumble. I'm going to give the standard disclaimer about all of the disclaimers and whatnot. I'm going to get mad listening to this again. Listen to this, people. You will not, hold on, stop. You won't believe what you're about to see. This Sunday evening's vomitous intro is brought to you courtesy of Omar Algebra, Justin Trudeau's Minister of Transport. You're going to puke into your mouth when you see this. Let me just, spoiler alert, how did I describe this? It's purely psychopathic. It's psychopathic. The only thing I regret about this tweet is that I did not put a dash in goddamn. I should not have used the Lord's name in vain. I'm superstitious, not religious. I shouldn't have done that. Doesn't matter. Psychopathic. If I saw someone like this on the street and they interacted with me the way Omar Algebra is interacting with this Rebel News journalist, I would be afraid for my life. I would think this person is out of their mind. I don't want to overblow it or exaggerate it. Listen to this.
Conservatives brought forward a motion to denounce Mr. Algebra. Yesterday, conservatives brought forward a motion to denounce the threatening tweets of a accredited journalist. Why did some liberals say nay to that?
How are you today?
Do you not care about the safety of politicians in the House of Commons?
How are you today?
I'm great. How about you? Are you able to answer our question?
I'm enjoying this walk.
Why do you refuse to denounce
I am enjoying
journalists
this walk.
that threaten conservative politician?
Are you doing well?
Are you able to answer our question, or is that just not in your mandate? You know, conservatives always answer our question. Why can't you do that?
I'm glad you're doing well.
You're not able to, eh?
I'm really happy for you, and I wish you success in your career.
This is not
What
funny.
changed
This is
in the
not funny.
science between now and in 2 days in terms of lifting the arrive cap, or was it just political science?
Oh, you took your glasses off.
What?
You took your glasses off.
Yeah.
That's good.
So are you able to answer? You're not able. Is it intelligence or just you don't want to?
If he had just done this from
All
the
right, last
beginning,
question
it
from
would have
me.
been better.
You know, you always talk about affordability, or liberal parties say they want to fight for affordability, yet you're planning on raising the taxes, on continuing the carbon tax. Why won't you cut the taxes?
Watch this. Have a nice day.
Why won't you cut the taxes?
A Queen's wave. He's royalty. He's royalty. The guy doesn't have to answer questions from journalists. He doesn't have to answer to the
All right,
citizen's.
sir. Have a great day. Good luck with this
He
parliamentary
gets to
session.
act. He gets to act like a
Mr.
raging
Algebra, yesterday conservatives
psychopath.
brought forward.
I'm saying a raging psychopath, almost humorously, but not so much. Imagine asking this guy a question, and then he answers, "Hey, how you doing? How are you doing? Are you enjoying? I'm enjoying this day." It's, you know, there's a part of me that thinks that Omar Algebra thinks that this is somehow more polite than giving the finger to the journalists. I would prefer it if Omar had given the middle finger to the journalists, because this is a middle finger. It's just that he thinks it's cute. He thinks it's funny. The excuse, I no longer have to answer to Rebel News journalists because they're not journalists, is old and tired and expired. That could be any Canadian citizen. And Omar Algebra, as an elected official who represents Canadians, doesn't have the luxury of answering these questions. He has the obligation to answer these questions. But look at this pompous, arrogant, in your face.
To denounce the threatening tweets of a accredited journalist. Why did some liberals say nay to that?
Hey,
How are you today?
how are you today?
Do you not care about the safety of politicians in the House of Commons?
How are you today?
How are you
I'm
today?
great. How about you? Are you able to answer our question?
I'm enjoying this walk.
I am enjoying this walk. There's so many things I want to say that I can't say because it would be like movie references that might be politically incorrect. This is unhinged. I'm enjoying this walk. It's like he's short-circuited. It's like something in his brain just clicked and he short-circuited. He's a robot. He got a little water between the wiring, and he's just short-circuited, just like putting words together.
Why do you refuse
I'm
to
enjoying
denounce
this walk.
journalists that threaten conservative politician?
Are you doing well?
You asked
Are
that
you able
3
to
times.
answer our question, or is that just not in your mandate? You know, conservatives always answer our question. Why can't you do that?
I'm glad you're doing well.
I'm glad you're doing well. Look at that face. Like, we can do whatever we want, and we're going to get away with it. We have no accountability for what we do, and we don't have to answer to you peasants.
You're not able to, eh?
I'm really happy for you, and I wish you success in your career.
Like, does Omar Algebra go home and say, "Man, I handled that really well. I'm proud of myself. I'm sure my parents would be proud of me. I'm sure my children would be proud of me. I handled that like a champ." How are you doing? How are you doing? I'm doing well. I'm really enjoying this walk. But it's this Queen's wave at the end that is the kick in the groin after the kick in the teeth. Look at it. He looks at the camera.
Say,
Hi,
Why won't you
hi,
cut the
Ma.
taxes?
Hi, Ma. Yeah. Peasants. You are worthless peasants, and I don't have to answer to any of you. It enraged me. That actually made me unhappy last night, and it made it difficult for me to sleep last night. Hey, how are you? Let me just see what. Hey, I'm enjoying this walk. I mean, just don't answer the question then. Just ignore him if you think that that's an appropriate thing to do. The way. Yeah. Oh, what's that? Hyperinflation in Canada? Sorry, not hyperinflation, just massive inflation in Canada. Oh, well, a crushed economy. Oh, we lost a vaccine passport that we just rescinded because science. Hi, Ma. I'm waving. Viva, the Rumble stream is not working. Some video playing over and over again. Hold on. It shouldn't be. You should probably refresh it. Hold on 1 second. Let me see here. Live stream. No, dude, we're live. We're live, and we got almost 6,000 people watching on Rumble. So refresh your screen, because that short video that plays over and over again is the placeholder until the stream goes live. So that's enraging. Omar Algebra. Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing well. I'm enjoying this walk. Like, it's middle finger is just as rude, and at least it's honest. For shame. Okay, now let me just read some super chats, and then we'll get into the standard disclaimers. I am sure Omar had this tactic all planned out as the best way to avoid answering questions, since he cannot really answer any of them. The guy can make Santa Claus related government propaganda. The guy can pretend to meet with truckers, virtue signal all he wants. Answer a question. It's not a luxury, it's an obligation. I don't care that it's Rebel News. I don't care if it's True North. I don't care if it's OAN. You are answering those questions not to the journalist, but to the citizens. And you have to answer to the citizens. You don't have the right not to, although the way these politicians conduct themselves, they think answering to the people they represent is purely discretionary. Consent not required. I saw some super chats, which is going to remind me of standard disclaimers, people. No legal advice, no medical advice, no election fortification advice. We will be taking the stream over to Rumble exclusively. I'd say at about the 30 or 40-minute mark, depending on when's a good time to cut into it. What else? Rumble has these things called Rumble Rants. They're like super chats. Rumble takes 20%, so better for the platform, better for the creator. Best place to support Robert Barnes and myself, if you like the work that we do, is vivabarneslaw.locals.com. If for whatever the reason you don't like Robert, you're wrong, and you should like Robert. There's YouTube memberships, but really, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, like our Substack, if you want to support the channel, what we do, that's the best place. Like $5 a month and $50 a year if you get a year at one time. Tons of exclusive stuff, tons of locals exclusive streams, Barnes stuff. It's phenomenal. Okay, now, because I do streams every day, but I forget that Sunday night is the big night, and a lot of people don't watch the daily streams, I take for granted everybody knows how we fared during Hurricane Ian. T-Craft5604 says, how did you guys fare during Hurricane Ian? Loved your cameo in Cast Cancel. Couldn't stop Cast Castle on Timcast. I did a funny cameo, I think. So first things first, but for the grace of God, the hurricane went around to the west and then made landfall to the northwest. Literally, like, just, that's how the breeze was blowing that day around and made landfall at Fort Myer, Tallahassee, who did not fare so well. We were fine here. We had a tornado warning at 5:15 in the morning, Thursday morning, I think. Scared the bejesus out of everybody in the family, but other than that, we did well in that we survived and had minimal damage. We had no damage here, but elsewhere there was some minimal damage. But up north, northwest, they did not fare so well. There is a fund that has been set up to help for anybody who's inclined to do it. And let me just get it. It's called the Florida. Son of a gun. I'll share the link. I donated last week. Our kids and the local community kids today did a fundraiser selling lemonade and slime on the street today, and we raised $770. And nobody took the slime. Like, you got parents out there. By the way, this is a great tactic, parents. Sell slime. You will get parents to give you money and demand not to take the slime, because any parent out there knows slime is the biggest pain in the neck on earth. That is not a beer. That is pineapple something or other. So, as luck would have it, we did find we're trying to see what we can do to help the people up north. I was going to drive supplies up or do whatever I could, but then I had a discussion with someone who said, "Don't go unless you're packing heat." And I said, "Look, if that's the criteria for going somewhere, I'm going to stay back and do things a different way." Let me see what you got here. Show me the candy before I get into the van. I'm no dummy. Okay, I don't know what that is, but that's funny. A blessed good evening. All about the money in regards to the tyrannical lifting of the COVID border travel. Let's not forget that the Blue Jays are in the MLB playoffs as well. JRC, not unreasonable, not an unreasonable thought. And we had a Rumble rant, a $20 Rumble rant, which says, Viva Barnes, retainer for advising on a pro se insurance car accident case. Robert Barnes, retainer for representing a want-to-be pro se car accident cause. I'll screen grab. PayPal going woke, dude. We're going to talk about this tonight because I am one word from Barnes away from canceling my PayPal account. Viva PayPal woke, censoring, banning people. 5+ years Infowars ban. We're going to talk about it, but on the menu tonight, PayPal going woke. I'm going to ask Robert about the Nord Stream sabotage. See what he thinks. I think I know what he thinks, but I don't know what he thinks yet because I didn't catch him on the Duran last week. Just a ton of other stuff. Uvalde lawsuit. There's too much, but I see Barnes in the backdrop. So let us go. Now, everybody should, I know some people are still a little unhappy with some of the features on Rumble. They're doing their best to fix everything ASAP. Check your mic. It has an echo. I did clean up my office. And so there will be more echo tonight because we took out the hide-a-bed that my mother-in-law slept in. So there's a little more echo. So we might have to deal with that until I find something to pad the room with other than padding. Okay, Robert, coming into the stream. Sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
PayPal banned sales of guns and ammo. We're going to get there. Robert, first of all, book, cigar, because that's a new book behind you.
Yeah, it's a book called Smart Money, Michael Koenig. True story of him working for Billy Walters, a legendary sports gambler here in Las Vegas. Somebody who ended up being commuted by Trump on some questionable criminal charges brought by Preet Bharara of the New York under the Obama administration. But it's his story about when he was working for Billy Walters delivering sports bets around Las Vegas. It's a fun little story, well told. People might recognize Michael Koenig. He often is a journalist covering or commentator covering a World Poker Tour, amongst other subjects. Oh, and the cigar is the Wise Man. Oh, yeah, the Wise Man.
Well, very fitting, Robert. Now, I didn't get into everything that we have on the menu.
We have the Floyd. I'm about to say Floyd Abrams. We have Stacey Abrams' lawsuit losing in the state of Georgia's election reform upheld, even by an Obama judge, because the evidence was that poor, as it turned out, for her case. We got PayPal's new woke rules that go into place in November on Election Day. We have is Russia's annexation legal or illegal? And what does the precedent of Yugoslavia have and the United States' own position on it? And International Court of Justice have to say about that as a matter of international law. We got California passing every crazy law known to man. No autopsies on people whacking babies. We have if you're trans, we'll maybe help kidnap your kid and won't recognize custody orders from other states, won't recognize subpoenas from other states, won't recognize extradition warrants from other states if what you're doing is getting medical intervention in kids' care. We have the eBay executives who were caught stalking, cyber stalking, and harassing people who are a couple of bloggers who are critical.
That story is unbelievable, Robert. It's unbelievable. But we're gonna.
We got a monster verdict, almost $300 million against an energy company competitor. We got a new antitrust law who passed the House of Representatives, but Jim Jordan's doing everything he can while he continues to pimp himself out for big tech. Not the good side of Jim Jordan, sadly. Student loan lawsuits that were so impactful, the Biden administration had to reverse course in part, but not fully. And the question is whether those lawsuits will survive those changes. We got bar exam changes. We got a $48 million COVID insurance verdict. We got how to search a hotel room and get away with it by the police, according to the Fifth Circuit. We got the Facebook spying on your passwords that you enter in to access your websites and everything else you do in secret. We got a big Uvalde lawsuit. One part I'm sympathetic with, challenging the school. Very interesting what they were talking about. Certain things about locked doors might relate to a certain case in Connecticut that is not being talked about, or the issue not being talked about, but also going after gun companies, of course. We got the lockbox raid that a federal court found reasons to excuse all the Fed's bad acts on it. And we got Andrea Bocelli in what is an unacceptable G4. And we found out, apparently, according to Andrea Bocelli's lawsuit.
Robert, let's start with Russia, Ukraine. But before we get into the substance of the referendum, whether or not it's recognized by international law, despite what other leaders are vowing to never recognize as the results of the vote, the sabotage on the Nord Stream pipeline. What is your best theory? People out there are saying Russia did it, which it makes, unless I'm wrong, Robert, it makes absolutely no sense in any realm of reality. 4D, 5D, false flag, for Russia to give up their biggest negotiating tool against Europe. What do you say to the people who say Russia did it, and who do you think did it, despite the fact that they basically announced in advance what they were going to do between Nuland and Biden? Who do you think did it, and what do you say to the Russia did it folk?
Well, if you're looking up a culprit list, first of all, the nature of the sabotage is very difficult to do. So it's very unlikely for it to be private actors, very unlikely for it to be an accident. There was some speculation that it could be an accident, but most reports concluded that it was not likely an accident. And most reports concluded it was not likely capable to that level of sabotage to be performed by private actors. And then actually only a few militaries in the world have the kind of capability and capacity to do it. So you start with likely suspect would be a government and one of a very small hand, on your hand, the number of governments who could pull it off. So then you go to who had voiced opposition to Nord Stream 2. Well, one government more than any other, the United States government, obsessively had voiced opposition to Nord Stream 2. And as you note, both Biden and Victoria Nuland had been publicly promising, often with a smirk on Biden's face, that one way or another, he would stop Nord Stream 2. And even when asked, how would you stop it when you don't control it? And it's between Germany and Russia. He just smirked. Yeah, I promise you. And then he smirked. So in terms of motivation, your first suspect would be the United States. In terms of means, the most likely suspect would be the United States. And then in terms of who benefits, most likely suspect would be the United States. What this does is strip Russia of its leverage and forfeits Germany's ability to back out of the sanctions nightmare they've walked themselves into, where, they're talking about, handing out people blankets so they can stay warm in the winter and that kind of thing. Don't take hot showers. I mean, they're going to stink if they're in Germany, man. They're going to smell bad. But that's just where that's going. So everything points to the United States. Then you have reports that there was U.S. operations in the area, mapping out underwater aspects, testing out underwater drones right next to where this happened just a few months ago. You have this being controlled with the location of where the sabotage took place by U.S. military in substantial part. So there's no reason to believe Russia would sabotage itself in this manner. Every reason to believe the United States is the most likely suspect. And the United States denials haven't been overwhelmingly powerful. They've been a little bit weak. So I think everybody in the world knows this was a United States military operation. Everybody will live in, the American media and others will, live in self-delusion. I think kind of like the election fornication that took place. There was a Polish ex-defense secretary that publicly thanked the United States when this happened. He is married into powerful State Department families here in the United States, and he only took it down later. I think it's because there's a lot of people on that side of the aisles. Amanda Milius, who we interviewed, Darren Beatty, who we interviewed, Darren Beatty, editor now of Revolver, Amanda Milius, daughter of John Milius, director of the documentary Plot Against the President, has a documentary coming out on John McAfee not long, another good set of documentaries. We met her at the Project Veritas party in Florida. Sweetheart. She said that when she was at the State Department, everybody there was obsessed with stopping Nord Stream 2. So you have to be in complete denial not to realize the U.S. government went in and did one of the biggest acts of civilian terrorism for military purposes in a country we're not at war with in recent modern post-World War II history. That's what the Biden administration is up to and willing to risk apparently nuclear war to get there.
I'm going to pull up one thing. I was trying to find the clean video, but I can only find my edited video. Listen to this. For anybody who thinks to the hands of Russians, listen to this. Listen to this.
With regard
This is
to
Victoria
Nord
Nuland.
Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today.
I want to be clear with you today. What happens after people say I want to be clear? Oh, be quiet, you. Comes out of their mouth. Go.
If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
Now let's go to Biden.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine.
It happens
again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How do you do that? It's between Russia and Germany.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Robert,
Yeah, that's where he does the smirk. And apparently, according to German published reporting, the CIA tipped off the Germans that this would happen in the summer. They just said somebody is going to be attacking Nord Stream 1 and 2 soon. So you could guess that they probably considered that consent. They were testing out how much German opposition there would be, and there wasn't much. It's kind of pitiful for Europe. We just smack them around, and they just got cower in response. But yeah, there's no question the Biden administration is culpable of it. Now, in my view, this is an impeachable offense. If Republicans seize the House in after the midterms, which I think they will. But whether or not they'll add this to the litany of impeachable offenses that Biden is mounting up in record time is an open question.
And now I want to bring this up because a lot of people bring this point up. Moot point, it wasn't going to be used. Wasn't going to be used versus cannot now be used are two very different things.
Yeah.
It was a political bargaining chip when it was functional, when it could be rendered functional. Now it's no longer a bargaining chip for Russia. So they've lost a very meaningful aspect of negotiation. But Robert, also, how does it get sabotaged like this? Is it a depth charge? Are they dragging something over to break?
We don't know the means, but it needs somebody that has military capability of that kind of level of sabotage. So I was on the Duran last week with the two Alex. Alex is talking about this and a wide range of foreign geopolitical issues for about 2 hours or so. People can go back and find that. We discussed this as well. But both people of our locals board, Viva Barnes Law.locals.com, best board in America. The brought up, some people that had military training. Some other people emailed me as well and explained how this could be done and why we were likely responsible, because some of them were in the very units that had trained to do precisely this kind of activity. So part of its diving skills, they may have incorporated drones. There was a 17, 18-hour gap between the two explosions, one hitting the other. It's an environmental catastrophe, potentially. It's interesting. But the mainstream media is not talking about much of that, and the European Union is going to blame Russia, just like the Donbass was shelling itself. Russia was attacking was shelling its own, the nuclear power plant that it was under control over. Now Russia is blowing up its own pipelines and destroying its own leverage. Seeing how much dumb stuff you can get American people and the people in the West to believe. Sadly, many are still gullible.
So this brings us to the actual legal question now. Russia held a referendum in the eastern provinces, I think the Donbass region.
Yeah, Donbass, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, which are Luhansk and Donetsk.
And that is to whether or not they would like to join Russia, or was it separate from Ukraine, become independent, or join Russia?
It was kind of both. It was declare their independence from Ukraine and ask that that Russia recognize them and join them in. It was almost identical to the Yugoslavian. Putin is deliberately using the Yugoslavian example.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where the legal question comes in. The vote, by the way, these elections can be challenged because it's Putin. No other elections can.
Yeah, exactly. I heard, a lot of people had doubts about how this election was conducted. Now, the election had a bunch of international observers. And then afterwards, the EU started threatening anybody who participated in simply being an election observer to see whether the elections were done in an honest and accurate manner. There's nobody really disputes the election results. Now, I think that the people that did not vote were mostly no votes. So like in the Kherson region, I think that would have been much closer had everybody voted. But Ukraine told people not to vote or they would consider them criminals if they retook the property and locked them up. I mean, Ukraine was guaranteeing that this vote would go a certain way and guaranteeing intensifying opposition to Ukraine within those regions. It was a very peculiar action for someone that purports to claim this population as their own. Very unusual. But so it's pretty much identical to their international legal precedent set at the behest of the United States and the West that ultimately reached ahead with the International Court of Justice in the Kosovo case. But its forebears were Croatia, the whole breakup of Yugoslavia, which Kosovo was part of too, which included Croatia, included Bosnia-Herzegovina. It also included other neighboring regions like Slovenia, the split between the Czech Republic and Slovakia. All of the sort of post-Soviet breakups, there was a certain legal pattern we recognized as legitimate under international law. We successfully argued to the International Court of Justice that Kosovo's unilateral declaration of independence was not illegal at all. And whether there's whether there's an independent part of a state is simply a internal state issue, and that somehow, despite many years of U.S. formal legal promises to recognize territorial integrity, the United States government, maybe I'll post the extended brief the U.S. government wrote to the International Court of Justice in 2009, penned by the W administration, reinforced by Obama, so it crossed political lines here. Which said that no, respecting boundaries doesn't actually mean respecting boundaries. So the International Court of Justice said yes. They said that you can declare independence. That's a matter of internal dissent. You can create your own government. You can form another government. You can join another government. And that all that's completely legal. And one of their premises was, as long as there's some kind of referendum involved, that really makes it legal. And so that's exactly what Russia did. They took the precedent. Now, they argued against everything that took place at the time, by the way, especially at Kosovo. But they lost those arguments before the court. And they're like, fine, we'll use your standards and borrow them and imitate them. So under our own standards that we've set, we can't make any legal complaint under international law against Russia's actions.
And I'll bring up, let me bring up a tweet from Justin Trudeau. This question is particularly funny in the context of Canada, where Quebec twice held a vote to separate a referendum. Trudeau, the man himself who respects peaceful protests and women's rights, when it comes to recognizing this, says Canada condemns Putin's latest comments about Russia's referendums. The outcome of these referendums are not legitimate, and Canada does not and will not ever recognize them. I repeat, Ukraine's territory will remain Ukraine's.
And basically take that same language and you could apply it to Kosovo, to Croatia, to Slovenia, to Slovakia, to Bosnia, to Kosovo, to all those places. And Canada took the exact opposite position. They didn't say we will always recognize the territory of Yugoslavia. Just the opposite. So ran to encourage it, incentivize it, reward it, support it, recognize it, and then put military bases there. So Putin is just replicating our own precedents. From an international legal basis, there's no grounds to critique Russia's annexation of those regions after the referendums that took place. Now, I'm not a fan of this way of changing alliances, but there are two counterpoints in the American tradition. One is, of course, the American Revolution itself. We declared a right to declare our independence, and found that was a legitimate grounds to separate from another government, and so forth. Even more analogous is Texas. Probably the closest historical analog in American history to Ukraine and Russia is Texas. A bunch of Americans populated Texas while it was under the domain of Mexico. The Americans decided they weren't being treated well by the Mexican government. And so we supported their unilateral declaration of independence. Hence, remember the Alamo We have a memorial to it. That's why I get a kick out of America to say, oh, this is outrageous. You could never do this. It's like, I guess you think we should not remember the Alamo then, right? They're unaware of their own history or unaware of its clear analogy. And then, of course, we invaded to protect the Americans in Texas and then declared its independence. So what Putin is doing in southern Ukraine is not only identical international legal standards to the precedent we helped create in Yugoslavia, it's identical to how America got founded and how Texas even exists as part of America.
Robert, I mean, the vote, 95%. I just get
in the Donbass, and then it's like 87, and then, but if you include the non-voters, like there were 30% in the Kherson region that didn't vote. You could fairly infer those were mostly no votes. So my get, and that's consistent, as Richard Barris, People's Pundit, put out. You could have guessed this. You could have forecast this vote if you knew what the 1926 census was. Because it's the same Russian area dominate populations of that region. Russian ancestry, Russian tradition, Russian language, Russian culture, Russian allegiances, Russian economic alliances, you name it. It's most intense in the Donbass, the Donetsk and Luhansk provinces, but they don't occupy all of the Zaporizhzhia, I think that's how you say it, or the Kherson region. As part of those still occupied by Ukraine. The parts that they occupied were disproportionately more Russian. And now Kherson, in a vote where people felt comfortable voting no, would have been probably 60-40 is probably where it would have been. But everybody knew Patrick Lancaster covered a lot of this on the ground, talked to people in all the different regions. International observers were present. A lot of the myths being propagated out there that people were forced to the vote with guns on them and all this gibberish is just nonsense. It's more bad propaganda from the West. But what it reflects is Ukraine deliberately forced that population not to participate by what they said. If you were pro-Ukraine, you couldn't vote. So that always made sure that the vote would have a certain outcome. And then the second aspect is there has been migration since the war. My guess is that, and this was in the Patrick Lancaster reports, people that were pro-Ukrainian have left some of these regions since Russia's occupied them, and people that are pro-Russian have come into these regions since Russia occupied them. So that's where like Kherson was like a 50-50 split, slightly pro-Russian in past elections. Again, going all back to even to the census of 1920s. The rest of the region, the Donbass was like 95% for breaking off way back in 2014. So everybody knew which way that was going to go. And certain parts of those attendant regions were the same Zaporizhzhia region. Kherson is the one that, if it hadn't been occupied, would have been a very close vote.
Someone in Rumble, on a Rumble rant, Manix37 says, how can these elections be held in areas not occupied by Russia? I mean, I think that's definitional. A referendum will not be held in an area that is part of Russia. Because
right. I mean, Ukraine obviously. I mean, they did hold referendums in the early 90s on these things, and a lot of these same regions didn't want to separate from Russia, and then the Ukrainian government just ignored these. So a lot of these populations have voted in the past. The Ukrainian government has just refused to recognize the referendums. In the early 90s, they refused to do so. They refused to recognize the 2004 election, that they didn't go their way. So they had their first orange color revolution. Didn't like it when it went that same way in 2010, and ultimately had the Maidan coup. When they had the same referendums in 2014 in response to the Maidan coup, they didn't recognize them again. So these populations have been voting, especially in the Donbass, over and over again to get out of Ukraine. And the Ukrainian government has just refused to recognize them.
And what of Ukraine's now, I don't know, new application for NATO recognition? Is there not a policy that
it was already rejected?
It was okay. And isn't there not a policy
it was political theater. The Zelensky still playing tough guy. It was funny. He went out with one of those press conferences, and the two people next to him actually have normal height. So he makes you look like Goliath, Viva. That's how big.
Robert, I think he's still taller than me. Not that
I doubt it. I doubt it. But he said he'll never talk to Putin, that sort of thing. Putin gave a pretty prominent speech that was followed by a lot of people. I put it up as part of the Barnes brief at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, a summary of it, and a link to the whole thing. Pretty extraordinary speech. Whatever you think of it, it's going to be a very memorable speech in time. It'll be one of those top 10 speeches in the last 20 years, maybe even longer time frame, because of how seminal it is about the change and shift of where the world is going, and especially where Russia's going within it. But they made clear they're never giving back this land. So the only question now is whether Ukraine settles. They won't. even though Kissinger is saying they should, because he can see the writing on the wall like anybody else. And they took back this abandoned town called Liman, that had like 500 people in it. All they wanted to do was hold up the Ukrainians for a while they buttressed their troops elsewhere. And the Ukrainians were acting like it was the taking of the hill or something. They're not going to win. It's that simple. Their efforts have been mostly unsuccessful, and Russia has now called up another 300,000 troops. Now has legally the big change for Russia is internal legally. They now consider any attack on these regions an attack on Russia. So they will label it a counterterrorism action or even a state of war, which frees them up legally. They will probably start to target civilian infrastructure, electricity, anything that helps the military at all. What we call dual use infrastructure. So we consider it free reign from the get-go. But Russia is more restrained than we have been historically. And so Ukraine's in for a lot of trouble, despite us sending billions of dollars more over there. I don't see their ability to catch up to where the Russians are. They're trying to occupy regions that clearly don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore. So probably never did, in truth. So that have returned, in their view, to their homeland. There's not much hope for success, but that won't stop us from spending lots of money. Colonel McGregor was talking about sources close to Zelensky, talking about building a dirty bomb to set off someplace. I mean, these people are insane. But the Biden administration's equally insane. So we'll see what happens. But the legally, from Russia's perspective, it will only get much more aggressive now in the conflict.
And the interwebs say that Zelensky is 5'7", which is 1.5 inches taller than me.
I bet he's 5'3". You should see him next to these normal-looking people. I bet he's 5'1". I'm gonna say 5'1".
No, if normal in Russia or in Ukraine is normal in the States, you set me up against anybody normal in the States, I'm a foot shorter to everyone.
He looks 2 feet shorter. Maybe he's 4'5", 4'5".
And it doesn't matter. People, we're going over to Rumble now. Here's the link one more time, and we're going to start with. I think we'll start with the woke PayPal policy when we go over to Rumble. As I turn down the stream in YouTube in 3, 2, 1.